Good morning. The hearing board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District is in session. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, 2019, and the time is almost 9:10 a.m. We are meeting in the hearing board room in Diamond Bar. We have one matter on the calendar for today, and then we have our hearing board general meeting, which will take place after we adjourn our hearing calendar for the day and will take place in CC8. The matter on the regular hearing calendar is Universal Studios LLC case number 4935-17 for a short variance, and it is by agreement and stipulation of the parties placed on the consent calendar for today. I'm going to mark some documents. First of all, we have received the stipulation to place the matter on consent calendar, and I'm going to mark that as exhibit number 1. We have also received 2 declarations, a declaration of Joseph C. Bellis, and we'll mark that as exhibit 2, as the parties have agreed to enter that, to mark it and to enter it into evidence. So exhibit 2 will also be in evidence. We've also received the declaration of Lori Chu, and that will be marked as exhibit number 3. And the parties have also stipulated to enter that declaration of Ms. Lori Chu into evidence, so exhibit 3 is in evidence. We also have received, after the consent calendar documents were received, we received a follow-up document on letterhead of Alston and Bird, and it is in support of the petition. And we also later received stipulation from the executive officer from the district to enter that into evidence. So we're going to mark that several-page document, which is the fog monitoring results are attached to that, and that will be exhibit number 4, and exhibit number 4 is also in evidence. And finally, we have received proposed findings and decision of the hearing board and proposed order, and we will mark that as exhibit number 5. Just going to go through the stipulation and make sure if there's anything else I should mention. The parties have agreed to the proposed order, and the district does not oppose the granting of the petition, and operation under the order is not expected to result in a violation of California Health and Safety Code Section 41700. And with that, I'll ask if anybody would like to begin. Before we begin deliberation, I'm going to ask if there's any member of the public who wishes to be heard on this matter today. And I see none. And we are a 4-member board today. Unfortunately, the senator is out ill today, and we did not have time for an alternate. Would anyone wish to begin deliberation? Mr. Balagopalan.
Yes, this case was here last year when I first sat in on the board, and at that time I had opposed it. I think I was the one no on the consent calendar, because there was some information I thought was needed to agree to it. However, subsequently the Universal Studio has done the monitoring, and they provided data which I think shows that the levels of employee exposure is below the standard of 10 milligram per meter cube. And there were some areas which exceeded the 10 milligram per meter cube, but there were but they were not employee exposure, and it was a time-weighted average. So it's possible those areas may have peaks above the 10 milligram, but on the average, for the employees, it's below the standard. And so based on that, the objection I had before, it's gone, and I will be supporting, the consent calendar this time.
Great. Ms. Verdugo-Peralta.
I think in this case, in looking at all of the documents, that for me, the most important part was the monitoring and the level of exposure, and the fact that they did their due diligence regarding the monitoring, as was previously mentioned, and that they are below the standard in regards to the exposure, as you explained earlier. I think it would be in the best interest of the district as well as the public for us to go forward and grant this.
Thank you. I think it's important. We do get this petition, as Mr. Balagopalan was pointing out. We get it yearly. And Universal City Studios is the only party that I'm aware of in my tenure on the board that has come to this board and has properly followed the procedure of a variance for opacity for these types of effects. These are commonly used effects, and I can only imagine that during Halloween time, there are many facilities out there that are using them and going over the opacity limits, but are not seeking variances. And so in that way, Universal City Studios should definitely be commended on following that, monitoring it year after year. There is always an issue raised by new board members, and they have diligently followed every request the board has had of them to seek some kind of exemption through the governing board, to attempt to not have to come to this board for a variance, but yet they do need to do that, and so it's for that reason I also support them. If there's nothing else.
I was just going to add that they did indicate there was one complaint. Well, there's one child who got, I was asthmatic and I think was exposed to it and had some, but they explained, they took care of that. You know, I'm not sure if it was reported to the district, but there was one complaint last year. But again, I think I just want to really commend Universal Studios for doing the study, because the previous studies that were cited were more for Broadway production and so forth. So this is relevant. It's to the event that is occurring at the facility. So I think that's good data to have in support. If the district in the future is going to look at a rule amendment, there's data here to support that approach to amend the rule to exempt this type of operation from Rule 401. And it could apply to the other facilities who, as you indicated, have not appeared before the board, but who are probably doing the same thing.
That's right, and they are following, they, as part of the order and conditions, they have sufficient signage, and they monitor, and so everything is adequately covered. Any other discussion? And if not, I'll ask if anybody would like to make a motion. Oh,
So moved.
Dr. Bernstein.
I mean, just to simply reiterate all my colleagues' comments, in that Universal Studios did their due diligence to meet all the findings necessary for the granting of their short variance, and in particular, as has been mentioned as well, as the research that they've done may in fact lay the foundation for them to be able to get a decision on District Rule 401, Health Code Section 41701, so that those rules may be amended so that they don't have to seek variances going forward in the future. And so I'd like to move the item.
Would you like to make a motion, or is that, or are you just in support?
I'm just in support.
Okay. I just wanted to mention, just for the board's edification, because it's been mentioned before, that the governing board oftentimes does not agree to exemptions for certain matters such as this out of concern, which I think is smart and a correct concern, that sometimes if an exemption is given with one situation in mind, it could be used to be expanded to include situations that the governing board does not want to include. And so better to do a case-by-case through variance. And with that, would anyone wish to make a motion? Mr. Balagopalan.
So I'll make the motions. So in the, so in the matter of Universal Studios, case number 4935-17. I move that we grant a short variance commencing September 7 until November 11th. And from rules 401, Health and Safety Code Section 41701. And I think I can go through and make the 6 findings, but I think the petition for the finding and decision, it lays it out quite succinctly, all the findings, so we don't, so if we can incorporate that, except the only change that Mr. Holden is not here today and is absent, I think we can, then if we incorporate this and all the evidence, then I move that we adopt the short variance.
I will second that, and I think that there are a few open spaces that need to be filled in, the date, with today's date on the first page, and also Miss Nancy Feldman, who did not appear, is representing the executive officer in this matter, and I think that's it. And excess emissions are to be determined, although that's pretty much an impossibility, but it's excess opacity. And, is there? And the only other, I think, missing data is on the last page, page 14, the very first line, which is the date by which fees. And Madam Clerk, if you could tell us what day that would be.
Generally, we go 15 days from the hearing date, and that would then be September 27th. I'm sorry, that would be September 12th if we did that. They have been known to guard about 30 days in the past, and if that be the case, then it would be September 27th.
And you're talking about in this matter?
In this matter,
We've done 30 days.
they asked for about 30 days.
Okay.
And
And
30 days from today would be September 27th, or our normal, which would be 15 days, is September 12th.
Mr. Balagopalan, do you agree as the motion maker to include the date of September 27th?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, they put October,
Oh,
if you look at the
Oh, they
page
did.
13, yeah,
okay.
October.
Okay, so why don't we do it the day, what's the last day of the variance? That's in November, correct?
Yeah, November, yeah.
Okay. Well, since it is stipulated, and it has the October, would you be willing to go with October 1st?
Yes,
And as second, I accept that. Any discussion on the motion, board members? Ms. Verdugo Peralta, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dr. Bernstein, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote yes. Mr. Balagopalan votes.
yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Thank you for that motion. Okay, we have no other matters on the regular hearing board agenda, and so we will adjourn and our hearing board calendar, and we will meet about 9:30 in the, well, should we do 9:30? Will that be enough time? Okay. Okay. So we'll adjourn and we'll reconvene at 9:45 in CC8. And if at that time we still don't have everybody, we'll reconsider the time. What's that? We'll do the general meeting. Okay, we'll convene the general meeting at 9:45 in CC8. We're off the record.